So we did the Tyler Shook.
Shuck.
You know what? I went
it?
back and forth breakdown yesterday.
Yeah.
Today is JAXSON DART. Do we want to give our 2 cents on JAXSON DART?
No,
then
let's
hear
watch
Sean
the video
King?
and then we'll give
Or
it.
let's hear
Yeah.
Sean King first and then get to JAXSON
Yeah.
DART. So this is Sean King on JAXSON DART. We'll give our thoughts on JAXSON DART after we hear from Sean King. Keeping it rolling in our quarterback prospect breakdown series with Sean King. Next up, JAXSON DART, the Ole Miss product who played 3 seasons for Lane Kiffin in the Grove. And Sean, very differentiating opinions here on JAXSON DART. Some guys love him, some guys not as much, but the tape speaks for itself on some of these plays.
He does, and he's a very experienced quarterback. He's played a lot of football, 3-year starter for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, got progressively better each year as his touchdown passes increased in all 3 of the subsequent years. As we roll the tape, he does some really good things. He's very evasive in the pocket. He has excellent functional mobility. He has arm talent. You've seen him throwing down the field to Trey Harris and that group of wide receivers there at Ole Miss. He reminds me, Mikey, of Baker Mayfield. If we continue to go through the different clips and we could just run it and kind of let me just, talk about what he brings to the table, that's who he reminds me of. He's kind of got like that moxie. Baker doesn't have the biggest arm, but he got a good arm. He's not the greatest athlete, but he's a good athlete. He doesn't have prototype size, but he has good size. A lot of that is JAXSON DART. And I think he's going to have an advantage because he's not going to come into the NFL with those expectations. But these kind of plays, they flash on the screen time after time. Him getting rushed by elite pass rushers, getting out the pocket, head downfield, making a big throw. This was 3rd and 14 in a 2-point game in the 3rd quarter, and you see it pop up over and over again. In my opinion, because I don't think this is a very clear evaluation after Cam Ward when it comes to this draft class, JAXSON DART already is number 2 on some teams' board. I truly believe there's going to be a large variance on who the number 2 quarterback is. And, somebody's going to believe in JAXSON DART. Somebody's going to believe in Shedeur Sanders. I think somebody's going to believe in Tyler Shook. But his comp from the NFL level is Baker Mayfield, in my opinion.
Sean, when you look at some of these plays, and we just kind of ran through the 3 as you were talking, in my unexpertise opinion, I did not play quarterback at any level besides the backyard. He kind of has that weird it factor where it doesn't always seem normal, but he finds a way to get it done. Ole Miss never had a ton of success. They were good while he was there, but never maybe as good as we thought. And I just wonder how that part of it translates for a guy that may not have the exceptional traits, but can still find different ways to get the results you want.
And I think that's why he's been a winner. Ole Miss never could, put a team good enough to compete with Georgia, who was at their height, and Bama, who was rolling. But, they're a 9-10 win team every year with him as a starting quarterback. So I just think you said it right. He's got the it factor. And, I think he has better arm talent than, let's say, a couple different guys that are in this draft class. He's just as athletic as everybody, in my opinion, but Cam Ward. And I'm just telling you, Mike, he's number 2 already on some teams' board. Now, does that translate to top half of the first-round draft pick? We won't know until draft day. I think we'll have more clarity after free agency. But if you get JAXSON DART, you're getting an experienced player that I think's ready to come in and help your organization sooner than later.
Dustin, you've mentioned JAXSON DART before as a guy you kind of had your eye on. What did you like from what Sean broke down? What you didn't like? And do you kind of agree with his overall take on the Ole Miss quarterback?
I agree with a lot that he had to say. I see it myself. I saw it myself this year when I watched Ole Miss play. I especially like the job that he did in the bowl game against a really talented Northwestern defense, and that's the strength of their team. They don't have much offense. But when he was healthy this year, I really did like his game. I thought he would be a higher rated prospect because of his talent and his ability, but I do think the injuries were a little bit of a concern. I think that the offense that he plays in, people don't really take Lane Kiffin's offense all that serious when it comes to getting quarterbacks ready for the next level. So I think that's a little bit of a concern among NFL people in NFL circles. However, I do think there are traits there that lead you to believe this kid has a chance to do things, special things in this league. So I'm all about if the Browns have interest in this guy, can they get him? It obviously wouldn't be at number 2, I don't believe, but certainly could be an option.
You never know. Daniel Jones, not that you want to use that as a good
Did he go 8?
example.
He went like 8.
Went top 10, right?
Top 10, something like that.
Even though nobody thought he would be.
6, excuse me.
Go ahead,
Before
Jason. What do you
Josh finds
think?
out.
He said Baker, and I gasped a little when he said the comp is Baker. I was like,
Yeah.
in this town, how's that going to play around here?
Yeah.
I'm curious, Dustin, when you look at Jackson playing against the SEC versus Shedeur playing against the Big 12, how much do you have to factor that into any sort of evaluation?
Listen, Big 12's not what Big 12 was
Yeah.
when it was, Baylor going up and down the field and like Oklahoma. It's not like Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, Big 12. The defense has been improved in that conference. The conference is obviously improved because they added new pieces this year as well. So I would say SEC versus Big 12. Not much difference, I would say, unless you're just an old head that thinks the SEC football is everything, and
Right.
then you play in the SEC like it's just like the NFL. Don't get me wrong, it's great. I did 3 SEC games this year, calling SEC games. The talent's undeniable, but there's also a lot of talent in the Big 12 as well, and I think that Shedeur had to go through a lot with that offensive line that they had. He didn't have a ton of protection. He was beaten up at times. Facing pressure in college isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes that prepares you for the league because, hey, you play in an offense where you've got all day to throw. You could sit back there, and teams don't play man coverage. The zone is, allows for a lot of wide open windows where teams can just kind of pick you apart. Well, it gets a little different, a little tighter once you get to the league. So I would say that 2 things. Shedeur I think he's got a chance to be a really good pro. I do. I wouldn't look at the competition as much of anything. It's not like one guy played in the American Conference or the MAC or the Sun Belt or something like that, and nothing against the MAC or the Sun Belt. Love y'all. You cash checks
Call
for
a
me.
lot of those games.
And I think it's good football. But it's not the consistent competition that you're going to see week in, week out in P4 football.
It just feels like there is more chance for volatility in this draft than in most years.
Oh God, yeah.
Right?
Oh God, I think and I've said this from day one, guys. Don't be surprised if one of these quarterbacks is a top 10 pick that we're not talking about.
That's exactly where I'm going.
Or one of these guys that we're talking about that is
now
gonna be
we're talking about 4 or 5 guys. Yeah.
Sure, but we were talking about these guys as 3rd round picks.
Right,
Now all of a sudden they could be like a mid-first round pick.
I mean, you got McShay saying, what did Todd say about Shedeur? Is he a top 3 pick?
He had 4 quarterbacks in his top 32. He had Cam Ward as number 5 overall prospect. He had Shedeur in the 13 to 17. He did it by tiers, and then he had Shuck, and Dart.
Well, you can
in
certainly
the bottom of his 32.
You can certainly find draft evaluators who feel like they're going to go Shedeur's the second best quarterback in this draft, and he's going to be off the board by 3 or 6 or whatever.
Todd put out his mock draft this morning, had Shedeur going to the Browns.
And then Albert Breer says, I can't find a scout who thinks Shedeur is a first-round pick. And I know I talked to Zach Jackson, who talked to a scout who basically said that. I'd love to see the Browns take Shedeur because we don't think he's any good. So it's just wild, the variance here. And I just feel like we could get to the draft and we think we know the order and we could be way off in how this goes. It just feels like beauty is in the eye of the beholder of this draft, and there could be some weird things happen on draft night.
Yeah, but you could
Dustin,
probably,
can I ask Dustin a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
For sure.
Mike.
Dustin, when it comes to JAXSON DART specifically, at Ole Miss he played in the Lane Kiffin, shotgun, wide open style of offense. For what you've seen of JAXSON DART, and I know you did call one of his games, right?
I didn't call any of his games, no.
Okay. But from what you've seen and watched of JAXSON DART, do you think what he has and what he learned under Kiffin would translate into a very different offensive style that Kevin Stefanski likes to run?
I think that's unfair for me to answer right now because I don't know the specifics of his offense, and I don't know the player, and I don't know his mental capacity. I think that's important, when it comes to these guys. That's what these teams they love these interviews. They love the top 30 visits where they can bring the guy in and sit him on the board, and they can have him go through. Like Stefanski, if they bring Dart in, they can go through all these things where they can really find out, does he fit? Some of the concepts. Does he understand what our concepts are versus the concepts that he ran in college? And I would love to give you some great answer about it. It's unfair to the player.
By the way, the Browns, and Mary Kay made this point on the podcast yesterday, and she's 100% right. The Browns need to draft the best quarterback they can, not the best fit for Kevin Stefanski's offense. That makes no sense. We have given Kevin Stefanski a pass on this to some degree. the coach needs to adjust to the quarterback, not the other way around.
Yeah,
You don't take a worse player because he fits Kevin Stefanski, who could get fired at the end of the year.
If you're a coach and you can only coach one type of player, you're a bad coach.
Right, 100%.
You're a bad coach.
That's 100% true. Deshaun Watson is not failing here because of the system, or because or Stefanski couldn't adjust or whatever. He's failed because he's broken as a quarterback.
His body and mind have failed him.
Yes,
and
that's
he will
it.
never be the same player, unfortunately. And it has nothing to do with anything other than him.
Right. Period. Right. So it can't be. Yes, if you see a quarterback who maybe fits what Kevin wants to do, and that's a tiebreaker or something, or just a coincidence. But like, if you think Shedeur fits better than JAXSON DART, but you as an organization think JAXSON DART's the better player, then you draft JAXSON DART. It's that simple. I don't think it's complicated at all.
I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, you do have an offense that you're going to run, and you need a quarterback who, you know what I mean?
The coach has got to be able to adjust.
Absolutely, yes.
And it might not be the case this year because maybe there's no big differential between these guys.
I mean, it certainly looks like they're going back to the offense that they ran prior to last year.
I got you, but if they drafted a quarterback that would be
if you
better
draft
off,
Jalen Milroe, who runs a 4.4,
Yeah.
and you decide you're going to just do play action pass all day and never use his athletic
Right,
ability,
that's
you're
fail.
a dumb
yeah,
coach.
That's a
right.
fail.
And it's a bad
by the
draft
way,
pick.
And the Ravens are a great example. Look at how they revamped everything around Lamar.
They
When
went
got
from
Lamar.
Flacco to Lamar.
Couldn't be more different.
There's some coaching changes in there with their offensive staff, but same head coach.
Yep, and then ultimately Lamar also evolved. Lamar today is not even close to the quarterback.
Way
he
better.
was
Yeah,
as a
he's
rookie.
gotten better every year.
Yeah.
Did you mention Milroe's time? His 40 time?
He ran a 4.37 is what Alabama told
I said
me.
4.4, so
Yeah.
4.37. That's Dustin Fox time right there, baby.
You ran a 4.37?
That's my fastest 40 yard.
What did Lamar run? Do we remember?
I have no idea.
Has to be
Lamar?
better. Was it better than that?
I mean, it's a quick
At the
search
combine,
away.
Lamar ran a 4.34.
Okay, so
So he's Jalen Milroe.
I mean,
And by the way, everyone, can I say, shit on his ability to throw the football coming
Yeah.
out of college.
They did.
Everybody did.
Yep.
yeah, that's true. A lot of things they said. Obviously, Lamar was a better.
Lamar
player in
Jackson is a
college.
2-time MVP
Yeah.
who was the 32nd pick of the draft, right?
Yeah, right.
And this guy was shit on before the draft.
Bill Polian said he was a wide receiver.
I just sort of
a wide
I think-
receiver.
And
he's
you know who gets the credit for that? Lamar Jackson, because he worked his ass off to become the
Oh, he
quarterback
does.
that
I'm
he
not
is
taking
today.
anything away from him at all.
And I hear what you're saying with Milroe, but
Yeah.
and I don't know, how do you know if Milroe has that in here to do what Lamar did?
No
How do you
idea,
know?
man. No, it's a great question.
And that's how that's
by
why
the way,
that's why guys get fired.
I have heard that Jalen Milroe is like similar to like a Lamar. Like he's like Travis Hunter, like great kid.
Yeah.
Book smart kid, does all the right things. Like doesn't party. Like he's a really good leader. Like on that team. So those are traits that you can't coach.
Those are traits
Milroe,
you have to have in a quarterback.
Is
have to have,
Milroe
right.
the one who won the award for the best academic athlete?
Yes.
So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
He won the Heisman of like academic athletes.
Yeah. I mean,
Whatever it's called, the Campbell Award, or
Craig won that. Krenzel won that.
Oh, that doesn't help our
Back in
argument here.
But Craig Krenzel wasn't the athlete. Jalen
molecular
Milroe.
genetics major.
Yeah.
In college.
Yeah, he was supposed to be a doctor. That was
Did he become a doctor?
No,
eventually.
dude, he won a national championship at Ohio State as the quarterback. Like he
No,
doesn't
but
need.
he could have still become a doctor.
He could have. He didn't. And
What's he doing?
He's
Businessman?
Media?
He's in insurance.
Yeah.
I think he does some media. And he won a
Yeah,
national championship. And he
That's
lives
it.
in Columbus.
Lives
Like
off
you're
that.
good,
You're
man.
good.
Yeah,
You're
Ask
good.
Cardell what it's like.
Yeah,
It's a good life.
That's right.
It's a good life,
That's
man.